Dr. Sangeeta. You are the founder of the Unified Human Foundation in the UK and the US. The Unified Human Foundation is a nonprofit supporting NGO projects globally, which unify human beings with nature and through those projects with each other. You've worked directly with NGOs in India, Africa, the USA in projects developing innovation and natural solutions for environmental, health, and cultural community sustainability for over 20 years. Dr. Sangeeta, as well as working as an integrative medical doctor and anti-aging consultant, you also have an MBA degree from Essex, Paris. You're a pioneering medical physician coming from 4 generations of medical doctors, and you have combined your formal medical training with a host of complementary therapies based upon biophysical and quantum physical evidence. In the field of integrative immune system health, Dr. Sangeeta, you've designed a specific program for individuals experiencing cancer and autoimmune diseases using your own integrated approach. This program is called Conscious Cancer, and you have a hospital in Delhi, India called Sahi Hospital. You're passionate about sharing your business and medical health knowledge and experience with leaders and with people who want to create an impact change in their own lives. Using your unique integrative approach, you've designed an individualized mentoring program for leaders of this new age. The mentorship program is called Mentorship for Genuine Leaders and is designed for leaders who choose holistic, sustainable growth and development for their organizations and communities. For those who have commitment to the development of their purpose at this time. You work as a health and wellness consultant in many organizations and management consultancies globally to manage employees' health and work-life balance challenges. You've contributed to a host of books and articles on the interface of spirituality and science with mind-body medicine, as well as keynote conference speaker worldwide and guest speaker on many podcasts. You were awarded the Ambassador for Peace Award by the Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace, and more recently, the Woman of the Decade Award by Women Economic Forum and recognition from G100. The G100, it's the 100 globally most influential women in the world for your contribution to healthcare and the planet. Welcome. You've got a lot going on.
Thank you, Cambria. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and your very kind, gracious words.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we're here for is because you're the creator of the Mothership Earth Summit. And in that summit, the theme is designing a new planetary narrative. So what does that really mean in a collective context? Could you share a little bit about your perspective on the narrative of nature?
Absolutely. That's a fabulous question. So I just want to go into a little bit of background. And as we do, the narrative and the answer will reveal itself, will unfold. So on the planet right now, there are probably around 8 billion people. And the planet is running gazillions of narratives at the same time. How does that come about? Because we've got 8 billion people running not just 8 billion of their own major life programs, but also mini narratives within those life programs. And then you've got plants who have their own narratives. You've got animals who've got their own narratives. And I don't think we even know how many species of plants and animals exist on our planet. But our planet is like an incredibly sophisticated, complex biocomputer that's running all these algorithms which are individual, as well as group programs, as well as collective programs, as well as universal and cosmic programs. So when you look at it from that perspective, the planet is running gazillions of narratives at the same time. And our planet, as we're all aware, is changing. Her biosphere is changing, her ecosystems are changing, her earth lines are changing. So as she's changing, so are we, because we run our life programs and narratives with her. We're not separate from her. And that's a major narrative which needs to be reassessed by us. Because for the most part, we've been running narratives of separation from her, from our solar system, from our universe, from our cosmos. And these narratives, and this program it may have been useful up to a certain point, and now it's changing. So we need to start to change our narratives of how we live with her and all the other species of plants and animals and minerals and rocks and seas and everything else on this planet. Hence the need for this particular summit. It was inspired, it came through me, but it's something that is also part of my personal, individual, as well as cultural narrative. I come from the culture of quantum and the philosophies of the East and the Far East. Genetically, that's my cultural narrative and birth narrative. So in the philosophies of the Near East and the Far East, we have the Vedas and the Upanishads, and these are the sacred books or the universal books of universal knowledge. And there's one particular book called the Rig Veda, which was written thousands of years ago. And the rishis and the maharishis and the sages who documented this universal knowledge had already been talking about how, and remember, they may have had technology which we're not aware of, and they may not have, we don't know. Or they may have had just the technology of the third eye and being able to see esoterically. However, that too is a technology that maybe we haven't developed and evolved yet as a collective. So with this, they were able to actually see that the human body is made up of 99.999% of space. So the material realm that we are all so used to, familiar with, attached to, actually only really exists as a dense form of vibration, of movement, of attraction, and the movement of atoms within their own fields. So here we have the particle theory. This is the line, the thread of quantum mechanics that comes into my work, my narrative. And then we have the waves, where if you go into a less dense medium, you no longer just have particles coming together, coalescing, interacting with each other, giving our bodies and the plants and the animals a form, but then you have waves interacting with each other, subtle energy fields of frequencies, and even more subtle than that, of vibrations. So what many of the Near East and the Far Eastern philosophies and the shamanic indigenous knowledge, they've always spoken about subtle energy fields, which in quantum terms we now call electromagnetic fields. And I was fortunate very early on in my career to have worked with quantum physicists in the US and biophysicists in the UK, where we actually had the technology and we were looking at the human body with this technology, which allowed us to see into the non-material, the subtle levels of the human body. So we actually were able to see the chakra system and the meridian system that the meridian system and the chakra system are given in Ayurveda as well as traditional Chinese medicine. But we were able to see them. So they were no longer conceptual, but they were real. And my narrative, the origin of my, the origin of my works program, life program, was based around the origin of disease. As you mentioned in my introduction, I come from 4 generations of medical doctors. So, and my great-grandfather, he was actually a homeopathic doctor. And he'd written 12 volumes of books on homeopathy. And he was at that time handwriting newsletters, which he was then sharing with his patients. And he was making remedies for them. Now, homeopathy, for people who don't know, works on subtle energy fields. It does not work directly, as pharmaceutical medicines do, directly on the biochemistry of the body. So at the subtle level, there is a way to balance out and send messages to the cells, because each cell is also made up of vibrating electromagnetic fields at its basic level. And the organs and the cells are communicating with each other through narratives. Through what are these narratives? These narratives are our thoughts, are our beliefs, are our environment and influences. So as the environment changes, so theoretically, our belief systems need to adapt to those changes in order for our human body system, which is the most material level, to then come into some sort of harmony, order, peace, regeneration, because adaptation is regeneration is adaptation. And in the ancient texts and in the ancient times, again, this is more from the shamanic traditions and also from the Eastern traditions, and I know definitely in the African traditions, death was not something that was real. Death just didn't happen. Why? Because the thoughts and the beliefs and the traditions said, no, you actually just lose the density of the physicality and you go more and more into different fields of being, of existence, which is what our realms, our universe, our solar system is made up of. So the planets are made up of fields of energy and interaction. And if we look at it from that perspective, then what we do is we begin to realize or understand that we have the absolute potential and capability to live in freedom. And that's really what we talk about when we talk about being happy, when we talk about being stress-free. We talk about freedom. So what is this freedom? I looked into it so deeply from philosophical perspectives, from physical perspectives, from medical perspectives, from healing perspectives. Freedom is actually truly going into that space, that 99.99999% of space that we really are, and not getting so caught up in what we see or perceive as this life program and this world. And this is not woo-woo. This is very, very much now real theory. There is, people can look it up. They can Google it. Electromagnetic field theory, where now more and more scientists are agreeing and accepting that we are not, and the planet and the universe is all made up of nothing more than electromagnetic fields interacting with each other, creating form, recreating form, creating different form, recreating different form, based on what is required, based on time, based on narratives. So that's the source of my narrative for my life. And I get asked this question, and it's a very pertinent and relevant question. Is your narrative true? And the real answer, Cambria, is I don't know. And for me, it doesn't really matter. Why? Because as long as my narrative serves my life program, it's fine. If my narrative allows me to experience being well, being free, yet being responsible to my life program, then the narrative, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. And hence, all narratives are fine if they allow the person, the individual and the collective, to live harmoniously and evolve harmoniously. Because as we've just mentioned, 8 billion people, plants, animals, the diversity is unimaginable. Yeah. And we need to accept that the diversity is real. And therefore, your narrative is correct. My narrative is correct. Nobody is right or wrong, but it's how are we going to interact with each other and our planet and our environment and our solar system with this new, different narratives. And the wonderful opportunity of bringing these speakers together for this summit is that we've got some very interesting knowledge coming out of new planets. So we've got speakers who are talking about cosmology, consciousness, how the effect of new planets, how the effect of our major players, collective players in our solar system are influencing us here, and also, more than that, influencing our planet and planetary changes. And this knowledge, for me, is life-changing because it allows people the opportunity to understand, to realize, and be in peace, and to go more and more with the flow of what's going on. So that's the long version of my answer.
No, that's fantastic. It's a framing that is very supportive. Yeah. And so I know in your work, part of your work narrative, the work you do in the world, encompasses archetypes and archetypical energies. So how do archetypes fit into the planetary narrative? Because how you've described it, there's the layering of narrative it's a tapestry, right? So how does that archetype work in there?
Well, the archetypes come in. The word archetype comes from a very, it's transpersonal psychology. That's the category that it's been given. However, the concept and the roles of gods, goddesses, mythological heroes, superheroes, they've been in existence ever since human civilization has been in existence. And we know that that's factual, what I'm saying. It's not science fiction. So with these concepts, when we look at the realm of gods and goddesses, gods, goddesses, Greek, Roman, African, Indian, Egyptian, to name a few, and I'm sure that the cavemen and the pre-Bronze Age, they have their own sets of gods and goddesses. Underneath the gods and goddesses are semi-gods and goddesses and demi-gods and goddesses, and this huge layered hierarchy of a system which is on subtle levels, which actually has its own supervisory and administrative role. So we were talking to many scientists in the beginning of my career. And like I said, I've actually seen with technology, real-time subtle energy fields and electromagnetic fields. People used to call them auras. Now they're definitely called electromagnetic fields around human beings, around the cells, around pets, animals. We saw how different behaviors affected those magnetic fields, and also affected the frequencies running through the esoteric or the non-material subtle energy fields and anatomy, subtle anatomy of the body. And so these subtle energies have to be supervised.
Mm.
They have to be. Plants have the same subtle energies. They're vibrationary. Animals have them. So minerals have them. They're just of different densities and different frequencies. Mm. So they have to be supervised. There is a system in place which supervises them. And the way that I feel the Eastern traditions, and also definitely the Roman and Greek traditions, allowed us to respect those systems was to personalize them into god, goddess, mythological structures that had certain qualities and certain functions and certain responsibilities. So we've got the whole gamut, the whole pantheon of the gods and goddesses and what they are responsible for. So in the Buddhist traditions, in the Indian tradition, in the Hindu traditions, in the shamanic traditions, every layer of creation has got its supervisors and its administrators. And it's these supervisors, they don't dictate, they message, they communicate, they let each other know, hey, this is going on here, you need to be aware of this, or you need to change this, you need to adapt, you need to recalibrate. So we have this whole operational system, like we do. Honestly, it's in a computer system, it's incredibly basic compared to what's going on our planet. Mm. So that's how they communicate with each other and they relate with each other. So there's something very beautiful that I read about how do shamans in the Amazon, how do they relate to the plants and the animals and to each other? It's role play. It's, okay, are you my brother or are you my brother-in-law? Are you my mother or are you my father or are you my sister or are you my cousin? And each of these different roles will have different codes and protocols of behaviors and relationships. So I feel that a lot of these ancient indigenous and also the ancient cultures and wisdom teachings, they had found a way where human beings could truly interact with the environment and with everything around them in a way which was respectful and in a way which was of mutual benefit. and not exploitative. And even if it was exploitative, it could only be exploitative for a certain time before the whole thing would collapse and regenerate in a different way, because that particular program was not of mutual benefit. So with the linear philosophy, not the philosophy, but the linear thinking of survival of the fittest, that doesn't fit into this model. Hence, we need to rethink the narratives that we apply in our lives. And that's where the wisdom teachings realized that the easiest and most direct way to change a narrative was to create a relationship that then had its own code of behavior. So when you have a relationship with your mother or your father, there's a code of behavior. And everybody knows how to behave and how to relate to each other. And then, of course, as time has gone on, those archetypal models of behavior and roles have been changing and adapting to changes. And that's where we come in, or they feel like chaotic and dysfunctional relationships, but actually they're not. They're part of the adaptation and transitional process. So that's where the realm of the gods and goddesses and the archetypes comes in. However, I think we also need to remember that we've got archetypes in astrology for the planets. Astrology has given planets personalities and qualities and traits. Why? Because again, this is what's been recognized, maybe as certain narratives and waveforms and observations of behaviors of the planets, especially related to planet Earth. So with astrology, we bring in that other very complex but very interesting layer of it's not really about us individually. It's more and more about us as a collective on the planet and how different planets influence our planet and therefore us as a collective. So that's sort of where the archetypes come in. But again, like I said, I definitely know about Vedic astrology a little bit. I'm definitely no expert, but there they have minute minutes, nanoseconds, they can tell you what's going on in your life program. Why? Because they can relate it back to the planet and the planet's influences. And it's not so much about prediction, but it's also about warning. It's also about protection. It's also about, hey, you know what? You have the propensity or the proclivity to be exposed to certain viruses, organisms, and therefore have certain health issues. Now, this was given in Ayurveda over 5,000 years ago. Of course it's changed. Of course it's evolved. And that's the beauty of some of these Eastern traditions, is that they're open systems, which creates space for their evolution, because again, the premise is based on that we are 99.9999% space. So therefore, the system has to incorporate that. So we go into there, and Buddha said, Lord Buddha, he said that the nature of reality is truly an individual one. It's based upon the observer and what and how they observe. So you, me, we will base our stories, our narratives, based on what we are observing, what facet of nature, of reality are we seeing? And that's, again, for me, the beauty of these philosophies is that it says, okay, you're right, I'm right, she's right, he's right, the animal is right, the plant is right. Now, how? And you see it from a different perspective. If you need to see a surgeon for an operation, then that's what you need to do. The surgeon is right. If you need to maybe have you need to just sleep and relax, there may be a beautiful herbal natural remedy. That's also correct. This is actually the true nature of reality. Diversity and the incredible threads that come in. And that's what I think human beings really need to embrace, is that we are not the supremists that we think we are, and we behave as though we are. That we're actually all different threads of existence, of creation, and interacting with each other in whatever way. I don't believe in you have to love everyone. I believe that you have to know how to behave in appropriate ways in differing situations, with differing personalities, with differing climates and environments. So life has become, on a certain level, far, far more complicated, and yet on another level, far simpler. Because if we allow ourselves to adapt and change and go with the flow teaches us. What we try to do is we dominate the flow. And as we try to dominate the flow, we go off in all sorts of tangents and directions and crises. And I mean, even if we go with the flow, we can still fall into crises, but we can manage them because you go with it and then you come out of it. You don't get stuck.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, that relational aspect is fascinating and makes a lot of sense. So then back here in the summit, so as you're explaining these relational aspects, the summit really is about our relationship with nature. So that archetype, I think we get to understand, humans understand relationships with other humans and systems. So then when we come here and we're talking about deepening our relationship with nature and our planet, can you guide us in some daily practices, perhaps, that we could have a deeper experience with nature?
Simple practices. I believe in simplicity, and I apply that, or I do my best to apply it in not just every day of my life, but in every moment, because that's the way life is. It's already too, it's pulling and pushing us in all sorts of directions. So I try to keep it simple. And the thing that I find that is the most transformational and immediately transformational for me is when I really touch nature. And I really mean the full sensual experience of it. So whether it's touching it, whether it's smelling the flowers, whether it's connecting, touching a leaf, whether it's going out even in the cold weather or in whatever, season, there's an incredible relationship with that. And I'll tell you a trick, which I realized many, many years ago. When you go out in nature and you just look at a tree or a flower and you just actually truly appreciate its existence. Now, I'm not talking about gratitude. Gratitude is separate. I'm talking about appreciation. When you appreciate its existence and just think it and tell it, I cannot tell you, but it's such an incredibly beautiful experience. It's like that tree, that flower, whatever, registers it on a vibrational, subtle level and gives back to you that same wonderful feeling, that same wonderful subtlety of existence. And plants is something, again, that I learned from the African shamans. Plants are designed to just give unconditionally. They just give. That's why we call it Mother Nature, because they're designed to give unconditionally. They're delighted when human beings can receive what they have to give. That's how nature is designed. So when that exists, if we truly open our hearts to nature around us, whatever it may be, we can just drink in that unconditionality and relate and have a relationship with that unconditional receptivity, and giving back. And we go back into flow again. But the key is it needs to be done sincerely, not just as a mechanical act. We can begin with a mechanical, habitual act, and slowly, slowly it seeps into our actual heart and core. And then we open up to the subtler levels. And I've done it so many times. And it's almost like all that nature wants from us is to be aware of her and that she exists. And as you become aware of her, she forms a relationship with you automatically. It's really that simple. I don't know how to make it any simpler. And on another level, of course, there are wonderful meditational tools which I share and I teach to my students, to my clients in the mentorship program that I have for genuine business and life leaders. And there are there are 150, more than 150 different meditational tools for different things that you want to experience in your life. And every personality, because like I said, we have gazillions of narratives going on. Everybody is unique and everybody will relate to different tools based on what their design is. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to help many different people and personalities, different backgrounds, etc., access those tools and to have transformation in their consciousness. And that's the other part that I really want to stress here, which is, please, it's very important. When you have transformation in consciousness, you will have transformation in your physical body. Why? Because your body is 99.999% space. That's it. And that's what we hope, truly, that this summit will help people do, is through through hours, through experts who've been working in their own expert fields for most of their lives. They share these insights and knowledge and narratives of their own that allows people to have different perspectives of what is going on. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to accept all of it blindly, but you don't have to dismiss it either. Just because it's unfamiliar or you don't agree with it, that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It means that it's different. And that's what we're really living. We're living in a time of diversity. We're living in a time when the planet is diversifying. She's becoming much more of a let's say, a more active member of the solar system. And therefore, indirectly of the cosmos. So we're changing. We're also becoming more active, but which way? What are we going to choose? Are we going to choose the nature of reality? Or are we going to choose something that is redundant? And it's probably always been redundant at the higher levels because of the way that nature is organized and always has been. So those would be my simple daily practices: awareness, simple tools, walking, getting out of your head and connecting with the life and the plants and nature around you, and breathing it in and loving it, really, loving it, receiving it unconditionally, and just listening.
Lovely. Thank you. Yeah. And it's in that unconditional love, it reminds me of that freedom you started with, that people are actually seeking. And with that reception of unconditional love, there's a freedom in that, I think, too. So thank you so much. And those practices are simple and effective. Well, this summit you've put together is incredible. The speakers and this context of narrative allows us all to move through it. And so thank you so much for your time today, for your work in the world, and certainly for this summit, and for what we all get to experience here. Thank you.
Thank you, Cambria. And thank you, participants and people. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. That's all I would say. Definitely listen, watch, and enjoy. Nature lives in joy, perpetual joy. So enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.